Hello guys, I tried the Switch Glaive in Nioh 3 and I think I've managed to figure out the best moves for every situation. So in this video I will share with you how to fight with a Switch Glaive both in the open world and versus bosses, which gear set am I using, the soul cores, skills, etc, etc. By the end of this guide I will also show you how to deal massive damage and delete bosses with a very nice and long combo. Now, for this entire clip I'm using the controller type B, which means I will be casting abilities by using L1 plus light or heavy attack, instead of having to move the analog stick forward and use heavy attack or light attack. You can change this option from the controller settings. The first and most important move of the Switch Glaive will be the Empty Retribution. Empty Retribution can be casted only from high stance and will deal the most DPS in our kit. It is a very fast attack, which means you can use it in between enemy bosses attacks, the small window opportunities between their combos. I found myself using it a lot in the open world as well. I don't know if I was too strong for the new game plus, but most of the time 1 or 2 attacks of this move were enough to eliminate trash enemies. So Empty Retribution is the best move in our kit, and I forgot to mention that it is a Crucible attack. For the newer players, Crucible attacks are learnable through Crucible weapons. Basically, when you find a Crucible weapon, you will have to equip it until you've reached max familiarity with it, and when you do, you can use its signature move with any other weapon of your choice. Next we have Cyclone or Cyclone Wind, which will be available from high stance and middle stance. The difference between them is the wind element, which is just an upgrade. I will leave a link in the description on where to find the one with the wind effect. To cast Cyclone, you will just need to press heavy attack after a quick attack. Naturally, since the quick attack from the middle stance is faster than the one from the high stance, executing this combo from middle stance will be faster. And the third ability that you will have to know before combining them all together is Switch Stance Edge and the Switch Stance Retribution. So this is the unique mechanic of the Switch Glaive. Basically, after any kind of attack, you can follow up with a Switch Stance ability. For example, if we are on high stance and we do any kind of attack, if we press R1 and square at the same time, we will swap to middle stance and it will also do a chain attack. If we press X, it will follow up with an attack from low stance. If we are on middle stance and we press R1 plus triangle after any attack, we will swap to high stance and it will do a chain attack. Now, there's a passive ability that's called Wildfire Flux. You can unlock it like any other Switch Glaive ability, and it will give us extra damage every time we land one of these Switch Stance chain attacks. I haven't done any crazy research about it, but I think we get 40% damage buff when we reach the maximum stacks, which are 5. Additionally, when you reach the 5 stacks, holding the light attack will unleash a very powerful move. While this move is cool and it deals a lot of damage, we are not really going to depend on it. So, the reason why I've spent so much time explaining this mechanic is because it is the key to dealing massive damage with our build. The combo that I found to deal most damage with the Switch Glaive goes like this. I start with Empty Retribution, then I press R1 plus light attack to chain the attack from the middle stance, then I use one more light attack and then heavy attack for Cyclone, and after that I use R1 plus heavy attack to swap back to high stance. Finally, I use one more Empty Retribution. Now, if you manage to execute this combo, swapping twice with Switch Stance will give the final Empty Retribution a very good damage boost. The enemies that we are seeing right now on your screen are all from the new game plus. Maybe I'm too strong for them, I don't know, but the point is that normally the Empty Retribution deals some damage, while after this whole combo we will see numbers that are much higher. I will show you more moves of the Switch Glaive, but I want to stay a little bit longer in this combo because it is what I actually use for almost any scenario. So, what I actually do when I'm in the open world. I sit in the middle stance and I start the combo with light attack, then heavy attack for Cyclone, and then I swap to high stance with R1 plus heavy attack. Then I usually finish them off with an Empty Retribution. This combo is enough for me to kill any trash mob in the new game plus. Now a few more usable abilities of the Switch Glaive. Pressing light attack and then heavy attack from low stance can activate Kibosh Kicker, which will deal very good key damage to our enemies. I actually use this move in boss fights in the small window opportunities that they give us to deplete their ki. Depleting the boss's ki bar is very important in Nioh 3, because after you fully deplete it, you will have a few seconds of free damage while they are going into an animation to enter the yokai realm. What we want to do here is to take advantage of this animation and strike them with our strongest combo. Also, after breaking their ki, the first attacks of our combo will stagger them for a bit more time, allowing us to execute these long combos that I show you in this video. So, heavy attack after a light attack for Kibosh Kicker to deal very good ki damage. Next, I want to showcase the Infinite Retribution. This ability is available only from high stance while holding the heavy attack. Sometimes you'll be able to use this attack and cheese some boss fights. The problem is that most of the times the enemy will take a small step back and this attack will stop connecting to the target. If you manage to cast it while you are in a good position and you are using certain buffs, you will deal a great amount of damage and very fast. A quick demonstration on how I deal so much damage with this ability. Basically, when you inflict the target with two different elements, electricity and wind for example, the boss will be confused. You can tell if the enemy is confused from the purple aura around it. When the enemy is confused, they will take a lot extra damage. So what we want to do here is to inflict the target with lightning effect, which will also slow it down, and then we apply another element to our weapon. Right now I'm using wind, you can use whatever you like. In addition, you can also use the Sloth Talisman to slow the target even more. This will result in having almost a stationary target that takes much more damage and you will be able to land Infinite Retribution for a few seconds. Moving on, we have Windswept, an ability available from middle stance that we can execute with L1 plus light attack. You can use this ability instead of Cyclone in your bread and butter combo, and what I found most useful about it is that it allows us to continue a combo even when the target is defending. If for example you're using Cyclone and the target is defending, your combo will be stopped, but if you're using Windswept, you can continue your combo and deplete your target's ki bar. SideSwipe is available only from high stance with L1 plus heavy attack. Sometimes it drops human enemies on the ground, sometimes not. The thing is that sometimes you won't be able to execute them as is. In order to execute them, you will have to cancel the animation with a stance swap, a flux or something like that. In my opinion, they made this unnecessarily hard since it doesn't even work 100% of the times. The final attack that I will mention in this video is the Fleeting Edge, again available only from middle stance while holding heavy attack. Personally, I couldn't use it efficiently and its damage was disappointing, but I hear some players say that they like this one, so I chose to mention it in this video. Before we continue to gearing, take a moment to leave a like or a sub if you want me to create more guides like this one with the other weapons, or if you want to support the channel. Now let's talk about gearing. First of all, you notice that I'm dealing serious damage. Maybe not as much as the other weapons, but the DPS is definitely high. What I'm using is the Minamoto set once again, because I love the parry benefits it provides. Now, you will notice that Minamoto give us extra damage from strength, while by default Switch Glaives scale with skill, intellect and magic, so no strength there. What we can actually do, however, is to go to blacksmith and remodel our weapon in order to make it scale with whatever we like. So in this scenario, I made my glaive scale with strength instead of intellect, and I was able to benefit from Minamoto's attack buff as well. For the final 3 pieces, I want to leave it up to you, and actually I want you to comment down below which set you think is the most useful when we are only using 3 pieces. Moving on, let's have a quick look at some useful skills. In the common category, I recommend Attack Mastery 1 and 2 for some extra damage. Repel Expert will make it easier to deal with the red attacks, so I recommend this one as well. Ki Sapping Follow-Up will deal extra damage to enemies without keys. This will multiply our DPS while we are doing our heavy combo, since like I said, we are looking to cast it while the enemy boss is out of ki. Awakening will cast magic faster, and Amplification will give us a few more seconds on our magic durations. For the samurai skills, Running Water will allow us to keep else while dodging, Unshakable will reduce the damage we take when we are attacking, and Oppressive Strength will give us a knockback immunity while casting arts, which means if we use these two together, attacks not only won't stop us, but we will also take less damage from them. Resilient Arts will make our arts deal more damage, but the arts gaze will fill slowly, so it is up to you if you like this or not. Favorable Wind will increase the damage we deal to enemies who have an ailment on them. And now you will have to choose between Destructive Arts and Tempestuous Deflect. We can only have one purple skill active at a time. Destructive Arts will give us some flat damage percentage for our arts, while Tempestuous Deflect will give us a very nice stacking passive damage boost every time we deflect. Personally, if you've seen some of my videos, you've probably noticed that already. I love the parry mechanics, so not only I do use the Tempestuous Deflect, but I also use Advantageous Deflect, which fills my art case when parrying, Blade Breaking Deflect, which reduces the damage taken after parry, the Roaring Dragon Deflect, which increases the elemental damage I deal after parry. Our final stop will be the Soul Cores and the Guardian Spirit. The Guardian Spirit I choose for this build is the Guhin for 3 reasons. First, it gives me minus 12% ki consumption for martial arts, which will help us execute the full combo even if we are not at maximum ki. Second, it gives me 12% bonus damage to targets that have no ki. Again, we said that we want to use our combo when the enemy runs out of ki. And third, it has a very nice Spirit Force ability that not only parries red attacks very easily, but also applies the wind element quite fast. So Guhin is what I recommend, but don't feel like it is mandatory, you can choose whatever you like. And finally, for our Soul Cores, I use the Ibraki Doji Soul Core in the Yang position, which will give me extra melee damage when I'm low health, and it has a very nice active ability that not only deals great amount of damage, but also applies the electrified effect on the target. For the second Soul Core in the Yang position, I usually use anything with high attack since I'm not gonna be using it anyway. In the Yin position, you can use Karna's Talisman or Power Talisman for extra attack damage, Last Stand Talisman for even bigger damage boost, but this one is risky because it leaves you with 30% HP. To balance this, you can use Preservation Talisman, which will save you from lethal damage. Lightning Familiar to apply the lightning effect on my target, which will slow it down. And Sloth Talisman to slow it down even more. Finally, I use the Wind Talisman to apply the wind effect to my weapon, but feel free to use any element you like or whatever you have. And that would be everything I know about the Switch Glaive in Nioh 3. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, leave a like and maybe a sub to support my channel. Thank you all for watching and see you on the next one.